A brutal 6-month struggle that tested the limits of human endurance on land, at sea, and in the air. And a turning point that shifted the tide of the war. They seem unstoppable. Their next move? To build an airfield on a remote, jungle-covered island in the Solomons called Guadalcanal. Why was this little island so important? This airfield, once completed, would pose a grave threat. It would allow Japanese bombers to strike Allied supply lines between the United States and Australia, effectively cutting Australia off and solidifying Japan's control over the entire region. The initial landing on Guadalcanal was surprisingly easy. The Japanese construction workers, completely caught by surprise, fled into the jungle. Leaving behind their equipment and the partially built airfield, the Marines quickly secured the perimeter and got to work finishing what the Japanese had started. They renamed it Henderson Field in honor of a Marine aviator killed at the Battle of Midway. It seemed like a quick victory, but the real fight was just beginning. The Japanese military was not about to give up such a strategic prize without a fight. They believed the American presence was just a small reconnaissance force, not a full-scale invasion. Their response was swift and brutal. From their major base at Rabaul, they began launching relentless air raids against the Marines on the island and the U.S. Navy ships supporting them. What followed was a series of vicious naval battles in the waters around Guadalcanal, an area that would soon be known as Iron Batam Sound because of the sheer number of ships sunk there from both sides. The first of these was the Battle of Savo Island, a catastrophic defeat for the Allies. In a chaotic night battle, a Japanese cruiser force sank for Allied heavy cruisers and killed over 1,000 sailors, all without losing a single ship. The remaining American naval support, fearing further attacks, withdrew, leaving the 16,000 Marines on Guadalcanal completely isolated. They were on their own, with limited supplies, dwindling ammunition, and the jungle itself as a formidable enemy. They faced not only the constant threat of Japanese attacks but also tropical diseases like malaria and dysentery, relentless heat, swarms of insects, and near starvation. The Japanese, underestimating the Marines' resolve, launched a series of ground assaults to retake the airfield. They held the line. Once again, the Japanese were repulsed with staggering casualties. As the ground war raged, the battle for control of the sea and air continued with equal ferocity. During the day, Henderson Field's Air Wing, A hodgepodge of Marine, Navy, and Army Air Force's planes, known as the Cactus Air Force, ruled the skies. They strafed Japanese positions and fought off daily bombing raids. But at night, the Tokyo Express would run. Fast Japanese destroyers and cruisers would steam down the slot, a channel running through the Solomon Islands, to shell Henderson Field and land fresh troops and supplies. This deadly pattern continued for months. October saw some of the most intense fighting of the entire campaign. The Japanese planned their largest offensive yet, coordinating a massive ground assault with a major naval operation to finally eliminate Henderson Field. They bombarded the airfield relentlessly from sea and air. Following this bombardment, tens of thousands of Japanese soldiers launched a multi-pronged attack on the Marine lines. The fighting was savage, but the American defenses, though battered, held strong. The main Japanese thrust was repulsed, and their attack fell apart. At sea, the naval battle of the Santa Cruz Islands was fought, a tactical victory for Japan as they sank the carrier USS Hornet. However, it was a Pyrrhic victory. They lost so many experienced pilots and aircraft that they could no longer challenge American air superiority over Guadalcanal. This was a critical turning point. By November, the strategic situation had shifted. The U.S. Navy, learning from its earlier defeats, was ready to challenge the Tokyo Express head-on. In close-quarters combat that resembled an old-fashioned bar fight. American ships, though outgunned, charged into the Japanese fleet to stop them from bombarding Henderson Field and landing 10,000 fresh troops. The Japanese troop transports were sunk, and their naval forces were forced to withdraw for good. Japan would never again be able to mount a major effort to retake the island. With control of the sea and air secured, the American forces on the island, now reinforced by the U.S. Army, finally went on the offensive. They began to push the remaining Japanese forces back, cornering them on the western end of the island. Starving, sick, and cut off from all hope of rescue or reinforcement, they called Guadalcanal the Island of Death. Finally, in February 1943, the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters made the decision to evacuate its remaining troops. Under the cover of darkness, destroyers slipped in and rescued about 11,000 emaciated survivors. On February 9, 1943, American commanders declared Guadalcanal secure, 6 months and 2 days after the first Marines had landed. The Battle of Guadalcanal was a watershed moment. It was the first time the Allies had taken territory from the Japanese and held it. The cost was staggering. The U.S. lost over 7,000 men killed and 29 ships sunk. The Japanese losses were catastrophic. Over 31,000 men killed, the vast majority from starvation and disease, and 38 ships sunk. More importantly, they lost hundreds of aircraft and their irreplaceable veteran pilots, a blow from which their naval air power never truly recovered.